This episode is called Policing While Black. You know, it never stops to amaze me how I decide to cough the second I go online. Listen, last conversation I had with you, you ninjas were not happy with me because I gave you an assessment of the Tyre Nichols killing by police. That's what's being called, killing by police. And y'all didn't like it. I can't help it. I gotta tell you the truth, right? You didn't like it because I didn't unequivocally say that every police officer involved in that was absolutely at fault. And what I did, following up with that, and that's not the main topic of today, but just to follow up with you, is I followed up with some of my black officers because, like I told you, I was one of the first black officers in a police force in Canada called the Ontario Provincial Police. It's one of the first batch of black officers there. People know me, and they knew me when I was there. What's up? What's up? How you doing, man? How you doing? Jamit? People knew me when I was there. I was very pro-black. I was very about my people. I was criticized for not arresting black people, not pulling them over. I was criticized harshly for it because I said I was not here to arrest black people. I'm here to be a representative of my community. And I still very strongly believe that black people are supposed to police themselves. I believe that black officers are supposed to be the predominant demographic in black communities, that community policing is the best style of policing, that black cops should be coaching, reffing, mentoring in the community. People should know them by their first name, if possible even live in the communities that they police. I believe that. I've been speaking about it for years, and I will never stop. The Memphis police force, my greatest issue was that there was not enough tasers. I was corrected. They attempted to tase Tyre. You can go back and look at it, because y'all came for me like wild hornets when I was talking about that. People talk about, I'm going to unsubscribe. I don't do this for subscribers. I do it for the truth. And they came for me like wild hornets. Okay? It was a scenario where I told people that not every single police officer in that scenario is going to be prosecuted properly. Some of those guys are going to get their job back. And this is the thing, that this is one of the things that you should understand. Why would the black... Now, I understand what the Memphis police did. I'm going to finish my question of the why. The Memphis police said, you know what, we're not going to do what these other police forces do because we're a predominantly black and Latino force. When we see something that looks egregious, we're going to fire these cats right away. We're going to sack them. That's what they did. They fired those cats right away, right? Welcome, Miss Ann. It's good to see you, Miss Ann. They fired those cats right away, fired them all right away, and said, go get a lawyer and try to get your job back. They did it reverse. They did, which is to me, that's not what happens usually with policing. When these white cops shoot a black man, which did not happen, these guys did not just shoot this boy, okay? They did not just shoot this boy. I'm not going to go over it again. You can look at what I said last time. They didn't just shoot him. The dude was much tougher than he looked. He wore those cops out. Those brothers were worn out. They were limping. They were wheezing. They were holding their back. They were worn out. And Memphis didn't just fire them 5 black officers. They put 2 white officers on suspension. Oh, and then they fired some black firemen, and they fired a couple of black sheriff's deputies right away. They sacked them all, right? And they just buried the young fella and may he rest in peace. And it's terrible that he died. It's terrible that he died from his injuries like that. It's terrible. It's not supposed to happen. Now, this is what my one officer said. One of my brothers, I don't want to say his name because I wanted him to come on the show. Not everybody wants to be front and center. But he said, you know what, Del, he says, it was excessive because you have to look at the totality of it. Nobody was there refereeing it saying, hey, guys, you're going too hard. Hey, take it easy. Hey, nobody told guys to slow down, to stop. The kick to the head thing, that guy's getting fired. That guy's going to jail. The guy who kicked a man in the head, you don't kick a dude in the head. You don't kick a brother in the head. You don't kick anybody in the head who's not actively coming to hurt you. You don't do that. That guy's poorly trained. He will be fired permanently. He will never get his job back. The other officers, however, they have a very good chance of getting their job back. The one guy who punched him in the head a couple of times, that's going to have a conversation of how excessive that was too, with his hands being restrained behind his back at the time. All these things are going to be up for review, I'm telling you. Now, the issue I have is that white police officers get put on administrative leave pending investigation. They fired these dudes right away. So this is what it's saying to black policemen, of which I am still part of the Association of Black Cops. It's saying that when you go out to protect the public, which is what these boys do, right? They went out, they got a job to protect the public. They were not criminals when they got the job. They had to be upstanding citizens. It cost about $100,000 to do a background search on a policeman, one cop, just to get the job. They go back to your school, your elementary school teacher, and ask her, how was he as a child? If you have a baby mama, they ask her, how is he? Would you be comfortable him having the job as a policeman? There's a lot of background that goes into making a guy a cop. So these guys did not take the job to kill black men. It'd be very difficult for me to think that these brothers went and took a job because they said, oh, I can't wait to have a badge to kill black men. Also, there was some kind of investigation saying that one of the cops, that Tyre Nichols was sleeping with his baby mama. They found that was not true. That is not true. They said it's unevidenced. They've looked into it. Multiple sources said that is not true. And I don't know, I'm not an investigator, but that's what I've heard. So to me, there was no preemptive motivation. There was no antecedent of why they wanted this dude at all. They were doing a traffic stop, whatever the traffic stop entailed. He took off running like a jackrabbit, took his shirt off, took off running. They couldn't catch that boy for no reason. They finally came up on him, got him again, and we know what happened and transpired since then. But black officers have to have the safety of knowing that if they take a job in their own communities, in their black communities, that these police forces will do their due diligence to protect them while they're in the pursuit of their duty. And by firing these guys right away, what the message it sends to the black community and to black men who qualified to be black police officers, because like I said, to be a police officer, you can't just be some dude on the street doing stupid stuff. You have a detailed history done on your life in order to qualify to be a cop. I don't care where you live. It means to black men, hey, we're not going to protect you when you become police officers. We're not going to give you your day in court. We're not going to put a safety net over you in respect to what you're doing because you are leaving yourself vulnerable. It's a bad message. And I don't agree with Dr. Umar. And Dr. Umar said that essentially it is an extension of the white supremacist structure. When black men are policing and they practice harsh policing techniques, police brutality, methods that apparently are similitude to slave catching. And he continued with this mentality that black men in America, policing is them operating under a white supremacist power structure. I do not agree with that, because that perpetually leaves black people in a state of saying that every single thing that we do is white supremacy. This is the one time where we can have a conversation about policing, about the black community, and saying this has nothing to do with a white supremacist power structure, because we're in Memphis, a predominantly black area, predominantly black police and Latino police, black officers involved with another black man who they did not shoot, who they went far trying to arrest him. They did not use lethal force, but ultimately the preponderance of force caused him to die. So we are in a position now where we can have an honest conversation about black policing. Let me throw this at you. Do you know what place in the world has the most deaths by police per capita? Do you know what police force in the world kills more black men than any other police force in the world? And let me give you a hint. It's not in America. It's not in America. Let me give you another hint. It is not a country run by white people. It's gonna mess with you. And I'm gonna post, I have it, I'm gonna link it to this video when I'm finished. It is a study done about policing in the island of Jamaica. And to all my Jamaicans, I ain't trying to throw you under the bus, because Caribbean policing is different. My father, I come from a line of policemen. My father was the guard emergency branch, the superintendent of the GEB. Okay? And I'm going to address all the questions too. So don't think that I'm ignoring your questions. I'm going to get to every question before I finish. So I'm going to go down the line, look at your questions, keep posting them, because I'm driving, so I can't deal with questions right now. Let me do my spiel. He's the president of the GEB, the Guard Emergency Branch, which is a national security branch of policing. He's a black man running a black police force in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm gonna get back to Jamaica just now, just so the Jamaicans don't feel I'm throwing them under the bus. All right. The GEB, we, as I say we, because I'm an honorary GEB man myself. We have, in the Caribbean, they wear a big blue sweater, hot sweater, roll up the sleeves of the sweater, and a hat like this. Bad man. They drive a blue Jeep. When you see those guys coming down the road, shh. Those guys will slap you first. Do not mess with GEB cops. The other police force, local police force, wears a gray shirt, different car, and then you have Army. So the ping order in Trinidad is regular police, GEB, Army. And those alpha black men are the law enforcement of the island. And it is similar in other islands. You don't play with those guys. You don't play with those guys. Because who you dealing with? You're dealing with alpha black men whose job is to enforce law. Same thing, I went to Ghana. The police guys in Ghana, those are your alpha black men. Police, Army, don't play with those guys. Do not mess with those guys. And then you got to add to that immigration, because you got brothers in immigration too. Where when I was there was a fight between immigration and the Army guys, because immigration was trying to do something with me in Ghana. They're trying to play games because they were bribed by that. And I had my Army guys who were with me. They took off their stuff. They're ready to throw down. I don't go anywhere in the world where I cannot utilize the law enforcement to protect me. I don't go nowhere like that. I really don't move like that. I have cop friends, Army friends in just about every country I travel, because that's who I am. It's what I've always done. I feel comfortable that way. I'm not showing up to no place as a 6'7" brother, as jiggy as I am, just to be a target of nobody. It's my mentality, because I was a policeman for so many years. I see myself as needing some level of protection, right? Even though I can hold my own, I still have a mindset for security. So in Jamaica, same pecking order. And Jamaican police do not joke around. So in 2000, this study is from 2000, I think it was from 2011. Jamaican police killed 1,489 guys. They shot 1,489 people dead. Jamaican police on an island of about 2.9 million per capita. It is the highest level of police shooting of anywhere in the world. Why do Jamaican police shoot people to death, kill them, and it's black men they're killing, Why are they killing more people than any other police force in the world? Right? This is a question that we have to have these conversations, because this is the problem when black people start talking about policing. And there's going to be some of you say, oh, all policing is bad, I don't want to talk about it, and fine, you guys are those people. But then there's the people who actually want to build civilization. They actually want to build communities. So they know if you have a black nation, guess what you're going to have? A black army, a black fire department, black cops. And so if you're talking about nation building with the black community, you have to talk about the fact that black police will police black people. And then what you have to not do is don't get stuck, as Dr. Umar is, in a conversation of white supremacist power structure when you're only talking about your own. White supremacy is not a boogeyman in every single black conversation. And I will not allow it to be a boogeyman in every conversation I have. I know where white supremacist power structures live. But in this conversation, specifically with Tyre Nichols, and the conversation, the bigger conversation of black populations being policed by black people, we cannot use the white power structure conversation forever. One of the things I had to correct in a friend of mine, a peer from work, and he says, oh, you know, policing came from slave catching. I said, that's not true. Policing is not something that came about in the 1700s. It didn't just happen. There was policing in the ancient world. Roman centurions were essentially police officers, right? They had temple guards that were essentially police officers. They had ancient Babylonian individuals essentially operating within the paradigm of the Babylonian Empire as policing. Policing is a part of your domestic control of a society. It has been something in every civilized culture from the very beginning of civilized culture. It's a very commonplace. Warrior culture also. Warrior culture is very predominant in black, Afro-Semitic, African, Afro-Shemitic culture. We always have a warrior culture. It's part and parcel of the black experience and the black conversation and the black community. So we cannot give white people credit for saying that black people have no capacity to self-police. We've always done it. So let's start there. Right there. Why does Jamaica have more shootings than any other place in the world? So you say, well, Jamaica. This is what people would say. Well, because Jamaica's a slave colony and they gave black people power. Nonsense. Jamaica's been independent for years, right? Because there's more crime being committed in Jamaica. Nonsense. No, there's not more crime being committed in Jamaica than anywhere else. That's nonsense, right? What we have to establish is that for some reason, in certain scenarios, we police each other harsher than we should. We have to be honest about it. I talked to some gentlemen about Idi Amin, the Ugandan president. They call him president for life, right? The West wants to call him a dictator. And what I was speaking about with some Ugandan brothers and saying, man, how was it to live under the regime of Idi Amin? You know, it shocked me. It shocked me. Because they said, you know what? Uganda was at its best under Idi Amin. Now the West had called Idi Amin the butcher. They called him all kind of names. They had all kind of names, that he was this dictator, this despotic ruler, that he killed so many people. All these things that they said about Idi Amin. African men. I was speaking to 4 of them. They said, hey, Uganda was good under Idi Amin. I said, explain to me. Tell me why. One of them said this. Listen to me, brother. These are not my words. These are not my words. These, I'm saying like Umar, how he repeats everything. These are not my words. These are what these Ugandan men said. These men who grew up from childhood to adulthood in Uganda and were in Canada seeking out permanent status in Canada. They were economic refugees. They said this. They said, my brother, Africa must be governed with a whip. That's what they said. I said, woo, bro, what did you say to me? He's a black man. They said Idi Amin had to deal with Africa like a strong African leader. It is the strength of the people that dictate the strength of its police and its army. These are things we have to recognize. If this young boy, and he's not that young, he's 25 years old, but I have kids his age, so I call him a young boy. It was his strength. It was his strength that forced the level of force that these cops dealt with him. You guys want to say, oh, the guy's 140 pounds, 150 pounds. Let me tell you something. Those 200 some odd pound cops, those 5 black cops that were trying to wrestle this kid to get his arms, they couldn't handle him. This was the point. His strength, his power, his tenacity, his desire to live, his desire to survive, his desire to escape, everything, you throw all those things in. That is what precluded the force that was needed for these guys to detain him. I am not saying their force is justified. I am saying this is why the amount of force that it took to stop this guy. They're like, man, I listened. I went back and I looked at the videos, you guys. I heard a cop say, he's got to be on something. I hit him so many times and he wouldn't stop. He got to be on something. This is what the brother was saying. And he was walking around. If you saw the video, he's limping. He's like, bro, this guy got to be on something, man. The kid, I don't know what was in his blood. I don't know. They haven't done any toxicology on him. I don't know about what I know of. He was so strong. He could take so much punishment, which is why these guys were probably so brutal with him. Now, the approach from the very beginning is the issue I have with those gentlemen. The approach from the very beginning is the issue, but black cops operate different. I was in Africa. I was in a position where I had to relieve myself. I found myself into a little alleyway trying to relieve myself. I came out of the alleyway. Cops stopped me. I said, what are you doing back there? I said, man, I had to use the situation. And he was ready to drape me up. Wasn't bigger than me, but he was using his office. He was like, hey, you're going to clean that up. I'm like, what are you talking about? Clean what up? So, see what you did there? I said, I went to use the bathroom, and what's wrong with you? And he was trying to get tough with me. Again, luckily, the cops who were with me and the army guys who were with me, they saw him come in. They're like, hey, back off. He's with us. And they backed him off. Listen, that's how that situation wouldn't have turned out well for me. I was polite. I'm a foreigner in another country. It's 2:00 in the morning. I ducked into an alley to use the bathroom to relieve myself. I came back out. This guy saw me. I don't know what his agenda was, whether to get a bribe out of me, to be tough. I don't know what it was. And he saw I'm a big man. He's a tough guy with his gun and his everything. And he came for me. And if it wasn't for my army guys, that would have turned out bad. Black men police a certain way. We carry ourselves a certain way. This cannot be ignored. This fact cannot be ignored. And the pride in the room, when they couldn't handle young Ty, they took it harder. They went hard on him. Now, the approach is my issue. When I deal with black men in a position, when I had a position of power, I try to come with grace first. I try. That's my main approach. Brother, listen, this is the situation. This has to be done. They come with diplomacy. They come with a conversation. A lot of things that we don't want to do in a position of power because we think, why am I explaining myself to you? You're going to do what I'm going to do. And all these things escalate into other things. But I'm going to go back to my original point. Why are places like Jamaica, why is the Caribbean, why do those places that do not have the white power structure still have issues with police brutality, with police killings. The issue arises in the strength of people. With strong people, you have strong enforcement. You have strong enforcement with strong people, and that's how it is. And you know, these things can't be ignored. You can't ignore when it's not something that's just, if it was something that just only lived in America, if it was just an American scenario, yes, we can bring down the white power structure and say, hey, that white supremacist power structure is affecting even how black men police. They are policing black people like they're whites. And because they have, it's what Umar is saying, because now they are black men who have received positions of authority and power from the white power structure, they now operate like white people when they are policing black people. This is Dr. Umar's position. With it, it's because my policing experience is not from a Western observation. I toughness of how the police officers are policing. Now let me listen. What you guys saying? What you got to say about that? Why would a traffic stop arise to that level of force in the first place? Can I address that? I'm gonna address that first. Thank you, everybody. A traffic stop is the preemptive, is the preliminary way that everything starts. Okay? You can have a traffic stop. You don't know who you're pulling over. The traffic stop is the most dangerous thing for a police officer, right? I'm taken from the position of a policeman, right? He doesn't know what's in that car. He doesn't know who the driver is. He doesn't know what's going on. A traffic stop, at the very beginning of a traffic stop, an officer should be at his most highest alert. That's the most dangerous. The first 2 minutes of a traffic stop is the most dangerous for any policeman. He's pulling over a car, he has no idea. He's standing outside of a 2-ton vehicle that can run him over. He's got to deal with traffic. He's got to deal with everything else. Yes, he shows up with a gun, but he doesn't know what's in the car. So that's number one. Number two, the interview test. Most people fail that interview test, right? I always said, and I used to do these things in black, I used to go to the black community, have conversations in our black populist communities and say, hey, what should a black man do in a traffic test? I would say, pass the interview test. Hello, officer, how are you? How can I help you? Not, what you pull me over for? Hey, I didn't do anything. What'd you pull me over for? Pull me over because I'm black. All these guys, I've heard a million of them, right? I heard guys say, you pull me over. I used to pull over guys pitch dark. The car's tinted out. I pull you over. It's pitch dark. I pulled you over because you did something I identified that you did. Pulled you over. Window came down. You only pulled me over because I'm black. And then he's looking at me saying, oh, shoot, he's black too. Damn. So the interview test, right? Hello, officer. I'm at 10 and 2. Lights are on. Turning all the lights on. I'm at 10 and 2. Officer, how can I help you? Oh, okay. Pulled you over for such and such. No problem. Can I get your driver's license? Officer, my driver's license is in that glove box. Is it okay if I reach for it? Are you okay if I reach for it? You comfortable with that? I'm gonna reach with one hand. I'm gonna keep the other hand here. Is that all right? All these things lower the level. The traffic stop was out of pocket right from the beginning. Right from the beginning. The cops were out of pocket. Ty was, of course, concerned. Every time a police officer pulls me over, still, my heart starts to beat a little bit now, too. I'm like, okay, I don't know what he's coming with. I don't know what attitude he's coming with. I don't know what bias he's coming to my window with. So, of course, there's going to be a scenario where it's like, hey, I don't know. So, this scenario, that's the most important part of a traffic stop. When these officers give you instructions and you say no, for whatever reason, they think you're drunk while you're driving. They think it's a stolen car. They say, I need you to get out the car. That's where all hell kicks loose, right? I need you to get out of the car, right? Depending on what you say there, that traffic stop can change. So you're asking the question, why does a basic traffic stop have to get a lot level of force? Depending who this dude is at the window, and he says you need to get out of the car and say, officer, I'm not getting out of this car. Right? That depends. Now you have a situation. When I'm pulled over right now, I immediately, I have my retirement badge out. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm a former police officer. Tell me what you need me to do. Oh, okay. What's up? Where you work? I used to work so-and-so. All right, man. Yeah, we're good. Have a good day. Boom. If I don't pull that out, though, if I don't pull that out right away, he doesn't de-escalate. I want this cop to de-escalate fast. I want him to think that there's no threat up in here. Quick. But if he tells me get out the car, I say, no problem. How you want me to get out? Would you like to? I'm going to unlock the door. You can open it, and I'm going to step out the car. I'm going to keep my keys, though, because the keys are my possession. I don't have to give you my keys. I'm going to keep my keys, but I will step out the car. No problem. Keep my hands out here. Stepping out my vehicle in a scenario, again, I don't want it to escalate. So I'm going to do that. I know that most guys get into the conversation about I know my rights and all these kind of things. And then the whole thing goes left, depending on the ego and again, what these cops are investigating you for. That whole scenario went left fast. And if those cops are going to get fired for anything, it probably will be the mishandling of the entire traffic stop as opposed to the violence. You think I'm crazy? Police officers have a paradigm of force that they're allowed to use. Some of those guys used it, some of them didn't. And so each individual lawyer is going to have a conversation about what did my client do wrong? How is this different from the use of force he's allowed to use? Why did you fire my client for doing this and for doing that? And all these conversations are going to happen. It's going to be it's going to be a process. It's going to be a process. Same with the fire department. Did you see that this person required assistance? Did you render assistance? Why was he sitting on the ground so long? That's my issue. Why didn't you guys take this guy to a hospital? Why didn't you contaminate him from the pepper spray you sprayed in his eyes? All these other things are the reasons for me. He's lying there. He keeps falling over. I saw one cop pick him up. My issue is not what took place to get him handcuffed. My issue is what took place after he was handcuffed. I saw that they brought care and they gave him care. Why did he go to a hospital right away? Why did they get him out of there right away knowing he was hurt that badly? All these other things. And why did they need to handcuff him at all? So there's a lot to do here. But what I came to talk to you about was black policing. Black people policing black people. Isn't this what we want? Do you want white cops policing black neighborhoods? I'm telling you, I do not. I want cops to see my daughter walking down the street, say, hey, that's Brereton's daughter right there. Them is two little daughters right there. Yeah, I know where they live. They live up the street. They good. Oh, who the heck's that talking to Brereton's daughters? Hey, y'all okay? Who is this boy? Hey, who are you, man? You know, that's my boy's kids. Yeah, don't talk crazy to them. I want that. I want policing where the cops from our community know our kids, know our mothers, know our fathers, know our businesses, are comfortable, and know the criminals. That sounds plausible for today's policing procedure over a loss of life. Let me see here. What other questions? They did. They were harsh. The hammer, they behaved like the hammer and the nail. Man, this is the thing that I just want to give you guys the culture, right? And many of you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking to people who are unintelligent. You're around ex-football players, ex-basketball players, tough guys who are tough, guys who got ego, guys who've been given the capacity to have a gun and to take away people's civil rights. They are going to be a hammer. They are going to be a hammer. And then, like I said, when this young man was capable of fighting off 5 200+ pound black men and stopping them and then taking off, like he took off like a jackrabbit. They couldn't catch him. The taser didn't stop him. They tasered him. He was gone. He ran away and took his took his shirt off. I pulled a guy over one time. He was a white guy though. I was on the highway. They said there's a naked man walking up the highway. I was like, what the hell? That's a lie. Somebody just making things up. No lie. I'm coming up the freeway. Naked white man walking on the shoulder, walking towards me. At this time, How old am I? I'm about 25 years of age, strong, fast, agile. I come out of my car, I say, come here, man. And this guy takes off running. Okay? I got a white female partner with me. He takes off running. I'm out the car. I take off running after him. This brother explodes like Usain Bolt. He take the speed. He found his clothes down the street. I was about, again, started about 20 meters away. That 20 meters became 50 meters. I'm running full speed. He got his pants on. I'm running full speed. Got his shirt on, running full speed. Got his shoes on, and still left me in the dust. That's how fast this dude was, okay? Tyre Nichols, and I'll tell you why people can do that. Tyre Nichols took off like a jackrabbit because, you know, fight or flight, the adrenaline he had inside of him. These boys had no chance of catching him. He took off because, of course, fight or flight. Fight or flight make a grandmother jump out of a wheelchair and take off down the road like Ben Johnson. He was gone. They couldn't catch him. And it also heightens his level of strength. They could not handcuff him, right? You don't need drugs to do it. A strong man with that athleticism could give you trouble if he thinks he's fighting for his life. And so these guys were trying to use force against a guy that was very, very motivated not to be arrested and very scared potentially too. Where Tyre Nichols swung at those. I saw it at no point. He didn't swing. He never swung at them. He was never actively aggressive. He was actively resistant. So there's resisting arrest. I will not get out the car. Actively resistant, they're pulling you, you're pulling back. Aggressively resistant, you're fighting back. Those are the levels, right? From the time that you are resistant, police officer can put his hands on you. From the time you are actively resistant, pulling back, they consider that to be assault police. Did you know that? Did you guys know that? Assault police is not fighting a cop. Assault police is pulling your hand back when they try to arrest you. They can charge you with assault police. It doesn't usually go anywhere. They usually drop that charge first. But Tyre Nichols was never aggressively fighting. He was never fighting them back. No, he was never doing that. But that's not the point. The point is, what are they allowed to do for an actively resistant individual? That's the question. And they're allowed to use empty hands techniques when they were handcuffing him. Were they allowed to pepper spray him? That's going to be a conversation. Were they allowed to use a baton? That's going to be a conversation. Were they allowed to taser him? That's going to be a conversation. Were they allowed to punch him? That's going to be a conversation. That's going to be all within the use of force model that department uses. And these things the public doesn't know about. But I'm telling you, these are all going to have to be those conversations. But again, even if you take Tyre Nichols, his situation out of it, and you start talking about black cops policing black people in other places of the world, this is the question we have to still ask. Why are we so aggressive against each other? Why? It's not just America. Why are Jamaican police killing more black men than they are doing in Mississippi, than they are doing it anywhere else? Why are they doing it? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And he cannot say it's the white power structure, Dr. Umar Johnson, because that doesn't exist in Jamaica. There's no white power structure in Jamaica anymore. That doesn't exist. So what it is that the strength of us now is what is in the police. A strong black man has to be policed by strong black men, period. And our policing mechanisms, our aggressiveness in our own culture dictates the aggressiveness of our policing. That's what it is. In my opinion, that's what I've seen across the world. That's what I've seen. If you are in fear for your life, you're allowed to flee. You're not, unfortunately. Unfortunately, you are not allowed to flee in his situation. He was not allowed to flee, but this is what I will say. They could have let him run. Why? They had his driver's license. They knew who he was. Because they said, we know where you are. We're going to find you. But they did let him run. They didn't shoot him, right? That's what happens to us usually. What happens? What do the white cops do? You run away, they shoot you. Did they shoot him? No. He wasn't shot running away. He wasn't shot in the back. He wasn't shot running away. They let him run. And then they found him again. But he wasn't allowed to run away. But he ran away and nobody shot him. Right? And the question, many of you here would probably never run away from the police. Many of you here, that traffic stop would have went completely different. Completely different. So it only affirmed what he feared the most, and unfortunately he was correct. He did fear dying, but this is my question. How much, and this is not me, this is a question that they're going to have. How much responsibility is on Tyre Nichols in respect to his fleeing from police? That's what they're going to have to deal with. Again, I ain't here to give you all the answers. I'm here to give you my opinion. You don't have to take it, but you're getting an informed opinion. I've seen it before. We had a police officer in my police force who went on he went to an Indian reservation, and there was a shooter who shot back at the police. This officer pulled his gun and he shot back and he missed, shot somebody else. And they tried to fire him. They tried to get him fired. They convicted him of manslaughter. Guess what? Our police force did not fire him. They had to force, of course, a white guy. They had to force the police force to fire him after he was convicted of manslaughter. So what I'm trying to tell you is that certain forces, that white supremacist structure you're talking about, it protects white officers. What you saw in respect to the white supremacist power structure with Memphis is you saw that black police officers have zero protection. So if you want to say something about the white power structure, where's your sister at?
She's coming.
Well, you gotta move this chair up. If you want to say something about the white power structure when it comes to the Memphis Police Department, say this: those black cops were fired and arrested and charged quicker than we've ever seen any police officers fired, arrested, and charged ever in America. That's what you should be talking about. We have never seen black people, black cops, we've never seen cops charged that quick, fired that quick. Did they beat him to death? Ultimately, they did. They did. They beat him to death. Was that the intention? That's what police officers are measured by. Were they intending to kill him? And this is called, for those who are people like me who've done law in high school, mens rea and actus rea. Was there the act of the beating killed him? Was an intention to kill him? Turn that off. Or was the intention to detain him? So there's actus rea, but is there mens rea? Was the intention of these police officers to cause lethal harm to him? These are conversations for court. These are conversations for court. And for the black community, the conversation we have to have is, how do we want to be policed? Do we want our police to be protected? How do we balance the protection of black men who decide to come and to protect their community? And how do we want police to be penalized when we find that they have gone past the bar of being appropriate? What do we want to be the jurisprudence of that? These conversations must be had, because this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a generation of black kids who grow up saying, there's no way in hell I'm being a cop. The second you do anything, the second you arrest somebody, you're going to go to jail. And therefore I don't want to be a policeman. So what's going to happen is the white power structure is going to come into Memphis, and only white people are going to police black people. And then they're going to set up a white power structure to protect those cops when it comes to policing you. So you can't allow black police officers to feel that when I'm policing in a black area, a black community, put your backrest up, that I'm not going to ever be protected. It doesn't make sense. They kidnap. Now they did say this kidnap. Get out.
Going in from your side?
No.
Why would you? They did say this kidnap thing, and I'm like, kidnap? How could it be a kidnapping? How could it be a kidnapping? I don't understand how they could consider it to be a kidnapping. This thing don't. Just get out the car. Just get out the car. Get out the car. Let her get in. How could it be a kidnapping?
Why are you pushing it back?
And that's what I could not understand is the kidnapping charge. Listen, 90% of these charges that you've seen, they're not going to be real. They didn't kidnap him. He wasn't kidnapped. They were trying to arrest him. And kidnapping is just a ridiculous thing to even throw at these guys, which is why black people should have some common sense to say, wait a minute. We've seen this before. We've never seen white cops charged with kidnapping. We've never seen white cops fired so quickly. We've never seen white cops charged so quickly. We've never seen this. And we've seen white cops literally choke somebody out, literally choke him out. Ty was not choked out. He was alive at the scene. He was given care at the scene. He was handcuffed at the scene. He was alive for 2 or 3 days after his situation. This is not the same thing that we've seen before. So this is what I'm saying. These conversations, and black folk, you guys have to be fair. You have to be fair, because if you want your own community, who's going to be policing it? Your sons, your fathers, your uncles are going to be policing these black communities. So you can't just look at this thing and say, this is how it is. All police is bad. Police is just a job. There's people behind that. I'm not alluding to his aggression. I'm alluding to the fact that the guy was so doggone strong that 5 guys couldn't put handcuffs on him. And I said before that handcuffs are an easy thing to put on anybody. In my other video, I said, I ergonomically, it's hard to put handcuffs on me when I'm letting you put handcuffs on. But this kid was so strong, the strength of him, and his desire not to be handcuffed, not to be arrested, that's aggression. I'm sorry, that's aggression. That's his level of strength. That's resisting arrest. He was resisting arrest. There's nothing we can get around that. I don't know this boy. I don't know him. I don't know the police officers. But he was resisting arrest, and he was doggone strong, and they couldn't arrest him. And so I wasn't saying that he was actively trying to be aggressive towards them, fighting them, but his aggression was resisting arrest. Okay? He was actively resisting arrest. And they couldn't do it. It's too strong. He was too strong. He was too agile. He was too fast. He was too squirrely. They couldn't pull his arms out. They were beating him to pull his arms out, punching him to pull his arms out. People are going to have to evaluate, is that something that police are allowed to do? And the answer to that most of the times is yes. Unfortunately, for some of us, police are allowed to hit you. Police are allowed to hit you. That's why they give them weapons to hit you. They give them sticks that can hit you. They're allowed to punch you. Are they allowed to kick you in your head while you're down? Heck no, that guy's going to jail. But evaluating all of these police officers and putting all of them in one, as a man who sat there and I looked at the video again, listened to what you guys had said from the last video. You know, there's going to be a serious court battle in respect to convicting these guys of all these charges. I don't understand the kidnapping charge. I don't understand it. I don't know how he was kidnapped. Where was he kidnapped? Was he not taken straight to the hospital afterward? Like, I don't understand the kidnapping charge. When I watched the video, they propped him up against a car. He's sitting on the ground waiting for the ambulance. The fire department comes. That's what I think. He should have been put on a stretcher. Something like that should have happened. That's why the fire department guys were fired. They fired 3 or 4 firemen over this. They fired 2 sheriff deputies over this. They were firing emergency people left, right, and center over this thing. So I'm saying there's more to this, and I think it's going to come out, and the conversation still has to be had, because they fired black firemen, black cops. They're firing black people left, right, and center. Imagine you are a fireman. You have nothing to do with the arrest of a black man showing up in the scene. You show up on the scene, you provide care, you look at him, assess him, because you're not a doctor. You decide that you're not taking him to a hospital, whatever you decide. I don't know. I'm making this up kind of. And then a couple of hours later, they say, "Hey, listen, you're fired." Why? You're fired. You went to see this guy, he died, you're fired. What? Are you joking? No, you're fired. Fine. In fact, your partner's fired, you two are fired too. Imagine being the sheriff's deputies who showed up, who had nothing to do with his bruises, and they calling you up and saying, "Hey, yeah, you're fired." You have never seen black people fired in this way over, and I'm sorry, no, I think it's still an accidental death. There was an intention to do harm, but I believe there was no intention of these people to kill him. That was not the intention. It's very hard for me to believe that the fire department, the Memphis PD, and the sheriff's deputies all decided that this kid was going to die that day. I find it very difficult. And this is the part that blows me away, is they're calling out the Civil Rights Department. Do you not see what white people are trying to do? They're trying to turn this into a civil rights issue. The White House said we're looking for swift justice. Swift justice, I understand, but how is this a civil rights issue when black people are all the people involved in the death of Tyre Nichols? How has it become civil rights? Where does it become civil rights? How does civil rights become a conversation? That is beyond my comprehension or understanding. Somebody smarter than me, let me know, because I don't see how that fits into this conversation. Don't you ask yourselves, as law enforcement, why are you constantly punished, whereby the white ones are not? Yes, that's the conversation I think we should have. He was kicked in the head at the scene. That guy's going to jail. Period. I agree 100%. The kick in the head thing is a never. That's never. There's no reason to kick him in the head. He was already on the ground. You couldn't control him. Get your breath. Wait. Call for more backup. Get him handcuffed. He had internal bleeding, I'm sure. Now look, I will not call the police. And that's the response. Okay, you saw the tape. Tell me what I'm making up. I don't know what he was being arrested for. I don't know. He was a super ninja, the brother. You saw the tape. Could if I put 5 200-pound black officers on any of you, could you guys stop those guys from arresting you, take off, run away? It was over an hour it took for these guys to deal with him, including the running away. Could you guys hold off 5 to 6 cops from arresting you with all the punching, the kicking, the beating, the tasering, the spraying? Could you fight off 5 strong black men for 1 hour, stopping them from arresting you? Could any of you do that? Because if you can, then you're a super ninja too. But if you're telling me that this kid who allowed himself, that's a bad terminology, who resisted arrest for over an hour, who stopped these guys from arresting him for over an hour, if you're telling me that he did not have some level of strength and perseverance to be able to do all that, then I don't know. Because he was doggone strong. I'll just leave it at that. And none of that is why he deserves to die. He doesn't deserve to die at all, but he was very, very strong. Chief of police involved, Rodney King case, was also held accountable, even though he was not there. Now, the Rodney King beating, again, I don't know how many of you were old enough to see that Rodney King beating. Rodney King beating was ridiculous. They weren't even trying to handcuff Rodney King. They weren't trying to handcuff Rodney King. And Rodney King, if you compare this to the Rodney King beating, Rodney King's was worse because he was just getting beat with billy clubs. They at least tried to pepper spray this kid. They tried to taser him, right? They at least tried other modalities than just beating him up. At first, they weren't beating him up. They were just trying to handcuff him. Rodney King was getting beat from the ground up. Black cops were standing around, turning their back on the whole situation. These were all black police officers dealing directly with this guy. And I think maybe some of the reasons that they fired them all right away too was because what was the seriousness of the traffic stop? Why did they need to get him out of the car in the first place? That's, I think, a major part too. Heard to say that they were going to kill him. I never heard that, and I listened multiple times. He was fighting for his life. They said stomp him. They might have. I never heard that though, but they definitely did. I believe that the white cop was only suspended. The white cop wasn't even fired. He's still on the job. They started the whole conversation by pulling him out of the car. Yes, that's how this whole thing began. They tried to pull him out of the car. They tried to pull him out of the car, and then the whole thing began just like that. The question is, why are they pulling him out of the car? But at the end of the day, they did ask him to leave the car. He said, why? Why I got to leave the car? And then again, that energy showed up. This is where I started this. This is not just a phenomenon of the United States of America. Jamaican police kill more black men than any other police force in the world. It is not a white supremacist structure. Jamaican police kill more black men than any other police force in the world. I'm gonna do my Umar Johnson impersonation. Jamaican police kill more black men than any other police force in the world. This is not a conversation simply about a white power structure. It is about how black people police each other. This is the conversation you have to have. So if you still have these problems when you have countries that are black countries, if you still have these issues, then this conversation needs to stop being a conversation about the white supremacist power structure and a conversation about how do black people police themselves. Because we do not want what they've done. They did in Trinidad in 2012. They bought a superintendent from Canada and made him the chief of police in Trinidad. They put a white man to be the chief of police in Trinidad. They could have brought my black behind and done it. They didn't do that. They went and got a white man to do it, right? Because for some reason, in some places, they believe that white people are capable of doing things that we can do on our own in some countries. And Trinidad doesn't have an issue with police killing black men, but Jamaica does. Jamaica has an issue with that. That's a problem. Do not turn anything. Jamaica has a real issue with that. And America has an issue with that. And the conversation has to be, how do black people police each other properly? And who do we want policing us? Do you want white? If this conversation was about, if that was 5 white officers, I'm telling you what it is. They would be on administrative leave. Black people would be marching. They would be on administrative leave right now. They would not be fired, and they would not have been charged right away. I tell you right now, if those were 5 white officers, the fire department would not have been fired. They fired black policemen, black firemen, black sheriff deputies over this. Right away. Come on. Well, that is Jamaica, mostly a black nation, exactly. Okay, this is a great question, Mr. Flary. My police friend, he said, does de-escalation mean anything to law enforcement? And that's where this conversation is about. There is a failure, there was a great failure to de-escalate that situation. My friend said they needed to have guys show up and said, okay guys, listen, he's had enough. He's had enough. We're gonna wait here. We're gonna overpower him, but no one is to strike him anymore. That is enough. That is what did not happen at the scene. And this is where training comes in. Look at South Africa. There are 13 Chinese police stations. Wow. Why is that? Because of the Chinese population, they want to be policed by their own people. And at the end of the day, we have to be accountable for our own stuff. There's a time to call out the white power structure. I'll call them out right away. But there's a time to say, this is our mess. This is family business. This is our problem to deal with. Right? Somebody should have shown up and said, hey, guys, that's enough. Let's start decontaminating him. He's had pepper spray in his eyes for over an hour. You guys hold him. I'm going to rinse out his eyes. Let's get somebody over here to check his vitals. All these things that they didn't do with Floyd, right? All the things they didn't do with Floyd. That's what should have happened with Tyre Nichols. But was Tyre Nichols resisting arrest? Yes, he was. He was resisting arrest. And so he fled from the police. All these things that are part of the reasoning. But we have to have a better conversation than the conversation we've been having. People flew off the handle at me last time I had this conversation. Flew off the handle. We have to have a real conversation about this because we still need to police ourselves. And I still rather a black cop pull me over. I still rather a black chief of police. I still rather to have black police in black neighborhoods. I still rather have black cops operate in our black school systems. I'd rather have black cops show up to be our parking enforcement and all the other things. I'd rather have it. I'd rather have it. I'm sorry. Rather have it. Right? Because it hurts me to think that my brother is my enemy. And this is the issue that black people have with this Tyre Nichols thing. But I don't understand how it's become a civil rights conversation. Because who are we? Where were the civil rights? What does the civil rights situation have to do with this? I don't understand how it becomes a civil rights situation. I don't understand. In somebody else's country. Yeah, China doesn't play. Let me tell you, if I had sons in the US, they could be long in Africa, never in the US. At age 12, they would be gone. We have to have respect for each other. We do, man. That's what this is about. And you know what? And I don't like to speak poorly of the dead, but we need to start training our sons and daughters how to have safe police stops, how to cooperate with the police. Like in Jamaica's a country like this. If they know you have a gun, they're shooting first. Cops are shooting first. Once they hear you have a gun, you're getting shot in Jamaica, period. They're not coming in no kind of way. And people know Jamaicans are a specific type of folk. They're relatively a little more aggressive than most people in respect to how they carry themselves. Jamaican police do not play. Like I said, most of the Caribbean islands, you have a paradigm between police and army. And those alpha black men do not play. Memphis Police Force, I believe they have some alpha brothers there. I was listening to the banter after the stop too, right? I was listening to them. These guys didn't sound malicious. These guys were looking for medical help themselves after the running. They were tired. They were bruised up, but of course they weren't as hurt as Tyre Nichols was. So this whole scenario, to me, is an overreaction of a very, very bad thing. Do some people deserve to be fired and even charged? Absolutely. But the fire department? You're going to fire the fire department? You're going to fire sheriff's deputies who showed up long after the tussle was over? Nah, man. This is just firing black people and demonstrating that, hey, you know what? Everything that we didn't do when white cops did this, we're going to do it now to black people to the 10th degree. And you guys can't say, okay, good. You can't clap your hands for that because it's still wrong. That's where the white supremacist structure is working. It is to hold you accountable when they have never held themselves accountable. And this is the part that I'm saying, even though a black man died from his injuries, he was not shot by police. He was still care was rendered to him. Black men were dealing with him, okay? Black firemen and emergency staff were dealing with him. Why is it that they are saying we'll fire all these Negroes who had any kind of interaction with him? If you showed up to the scene, we're gonna fire you. Come on, man, that doesn't make sense. And that's where, don't get caught up in it. Don't get so distracted from the horror of this young man, yes, being beaten to death, that we lose grip of all of the other things that are trying to come in and slip in with him. You don't fire the black fire guy, and then while the white guy who tasered him is still got his job. Doesn't make no sense. It's wow, as if being beaten to death is more noble than being shot to death. Listen, you gotta compare apples and apples though. The intention of punching a man in the head, right, from a black officer has to be held different to the intention of shooting a man. Those are two different levels of force. And it's not about nobility, it's about use of force. The use of force of punching somebody is different from the use of force of shooting someone. And I'm telling you right now, if there were female white police officers out there and they felt that they were in harm, they would have been justified by the white supremacist structure that many of you are trying to force down the throat of this issue, to saying, well, I shot him because he was too aggressive. I feared for my life, so I pulled my service revolver. He wasn't responding to pepper spray. He was impervious to blows, and he was so strong, and I had to shoot him to save my life. That's what they would have said. So having 5 strong black guys there who still couldn't arrest him and were using other methods other than lethal force, and yes, he still died from the preponderance of violence done to him, you have to still say it is different. You cannot stand there and say, well, it's no different than just, he might as well have been shot. No, you can't say that. It's not the same thing, guys. It's not the same thing, okay? This conversation was about black policing ourselves. How do we police ourselves? Is it appropriate for black officers not to have the same level of protection as white officers in the case of a police killing? The answer, it is not fair. And regardless of where you sit on the paradigm, when you look at everything, you know, everyone listening and everyone who will listen to this knows that when white cops kill black men, they don't get fired on the spot. They don't get charged on the spot. There is protections set for them. There's not this overreaction from the city of Memphis to fire people in other emergency services. Who has ever heard of the fire department being fired because a black man was killed by a white police officer? Who's ever heard of that ever? That's never happened. You understand? So this is about just having the ability to exhale and saying, how do we make sure this never happens again when our community is the policing community involved? It has to become that. It cannot become a witch hunt for 5 black men who did not come to work that day to kill anybody, who did not take out their guns and blast this guy with 50 bullets. They didn't shoot through doors, right? They didn't do the things that white officers have done. They didn't put a chokehold on him. Come on. They didn't put a chokehold on him that would have rendered him unconscious within 10 seconds. They didn't do any of those things. And so, yes, he died because of the preponderance of violence done to him over the course of an hour of fighting with police. And yes, some guys did some things wrong. But at the end of the day, black people were policing black people. and we have to figure out how do we do it without killing each other. That's all this is about. And I know you don't like it, but if you are now, and I'm going to do this to you as I get off this line because it's my daughter's birthday and we're going to do our thing. You are now a member of the community of the city of Memphis, and it is your job now to deal with this thing afterwards and sit down and train your police officers and train your fire departments and your deputies and to talk to the community and to now replace those officers and fire officials and sheriff's deputies with new people. Who are you putting in that job? Who are you putting to sit there? Gonna go hire a bunch of Latino officers? You're gonna go hire some Chinese officers? Or are you gonna find black officers again and put them in charge of their community and say, let me train you and show you how this should never happen again? And what are you gonna tell those black cops when they come in and they say, well, what if I accidentally kill somebody? Are you guys just gonna fire me and charge me if I'm doing everything that you said I'm supposed to do? Are you guys gonna protect me as a policeman and protect my family if something happened? No, I don't want that job. Go give it to somebody else. I'm gonna leave that with you. This is The Real Spiel. It's Del K. Brereton. Thank you. Jericho's her birthday today. I appreciate you. Use better analogies. My analogies are my analogies, you ninja. I'm gonna use the ones I use. You wanted to give me an analogy? Use your analogies. But I'm gonna use the ones that God gave me in my brain. Okay? But I love your commentary, bro. I love your commentary. I appreciate you. But I'm gonna use any doggone analogy I choose. All right? I love everybody out here. This is the Del K. Brereton. This is The Real Spiel. I say it like it is. I'm sorry if it offends you, but I'm not. But at the same time, I'm really sorry for the Tyre Nichols family. I'm sorry for that situation that happened to our community in Memphis. I'm sorry for the black officers, fire department, sheriff's deputies. I'm sorry for everybody who had to make those decisions. I'm sorry for all of the after melee of this is going to happen. I hope we can do better. And it's terrible that a black man had to die simply for a traffic stop in Memphis. Again, it's Black History Month, and it's not a good way to start. But I hope we can learn something from this. I hope for his daughter. I hope that they sue the hell out of the Memphis Police Department and give her a whole lot of money. But at the end of the day, the Memphis Police Department still needs to be policed by black people. The fire department still has to have black people in it. The sheriff deputies still need to be black, and we need to train them better so that we don't do this again. And we need to have conversations with our community so that they know they don't have to be afraid when black officers pull you over. They're not there to kill you. They're not there to kill you. They're not there to kill you. You can cooperate with the police and survive. Those are conversations, because the fear of dying was something that actually, like Miss Ann said, his fear became exactly what took place. So, again, I hope everybody has an amazing day. And what's that? Who said? What do you say? I am a ninja. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. One love, man. Love you guys. Take it easy. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of the show. We're gonna have another one later on today. All right. Happy Sabbath to y'all. Blessings.